guys, what's going on? Is Ash here coming at you today in Raid Shadow Legends. So today I'm so happy to welcome a first-time guest here. I was gonna say brand new, but you've been around longer than I have. BGE, welcome to the channel, man. How you doing?
Pretty good. Thank you so much for having me, Ash. I think we've been really overdue for this collab. So again, really happy to be here. And hopefully we can do a couple more in the future as well.
Yeah, we have a bunch of ideas. We've been talking for a while, you know, even though you haven't been on the channel, I haven't been on yours. But you actually had a free-to-play account in Raid for almost a year and a half, right? Before you started taking the creator perks or whatever. And now it's still mostly free to play, kind of free to play, but over a year, you were 100% free to play. And I have so much I want to ask you about free to play. So we'll have you on again and talk about that. You guys should check out BGE's channels if you like anything Raid free to play oriented. But I released a video, actually released a couple videos talking about the fusion and why I'm not so keen on old school fusions inside the game. And one of the reasons, especially on my free-to-play account, is, God, man, this is like so resource intensive to upgrade, not just to collect all the champions, compete in all those events and whatever, but then upgrade, rank up, ascend all these champions, bypass a lot of great epics that could probably improve your account, all to get a legendary champion. However, I noticed that you actually have accomplished a couple 100% free-to-play fusions, right? And I thought that, you know, to be fair to my viewers, I want to give every opinion voice here on the channel. I don't want to just, you know, say, it's impossible for free-to-plays, and that be it. So today I want to have you on specifically to talk about are fusions, old school fusions, viable for free-to-play players? You know, what ones should you go after if they are, and what ones shouldn't you? You also have some tools that we can tell my viewers about as well. So again, kind of a rebuttal to myself here, inviting you on the channel and talk about why free-to-play players should consider fusions. Because to me, it seems like a whole lot of work, man.
It is. It is
like a lot of work. Yeah.
It is.
You don't want to work. You just want to make noise.
And they've gotten progressively harder, right? Let's face it, these fusions used to be really easy. But I started covering fusions way back when I was 100% free to play. And I got my first fusion, which, as you guys might know, if ever you've seen some of my videos, is Foley, right? So he's in the intro of all my YouTube videos on Raid. And I remember back then being extremely happy about completing my first free-to-play fusion, but he was pretty easy. Then, however, I wasn't able to complete all of them. I had to skip a few before I managed to accumulate enough resources and then be able to complete the following ones. But to this day, and I'll tell you right now, I still use a lot of my fusion champions. I think they are absolutely amazing, if obviously on the moment that you get them, but also over time because they might be buffed, right? So you don't want to miss that opportunity to get a legendary fusion because you think he's not good at this moment, but he might have a synergy down the road, which will make him even better.
All fair points, 100%. And I'm still not going for this fusion because I just don't.
What are you trying to prove? Why are you out there telling people this stuff?
Tell me about this. Let's start. We'll talk about resources in the second half of the video, but let's talk about, especially as a free-to-play, time. How much time should you be prepared to invest leading up to the fusion in preparation and during the fusion? Like how time-consuming is this going to be? Is this a full-time job or is it not that bad?
To be honest, not that bad, but also you need to understand that, like, I'm the type of player that does absolutely everything every day, right? Like, I'm always regenerating energy. I'm always doing all my advanced quests, all the quests, everything that there is to do in this game. Now, I don't spend a ton of extra gems on extra energy to play every day. I don't farm overnight type of thing. But if you want to be prepared for this, it means you got to start looking at your resources weeks in advance, right? Basically, as a fusion finishes, you got to start preparing for the next one. And you got to do your potions in between. There's certain things you need ahead of time, or else it's going to be almost impossible to do it as free to play. But
I don't want to work. I just want to bang on this mug all day. Did you ask me here for any specific reason?
But also, don't forget, a free to play can mean you generate energy and gems as you're doing the fusion, and then you can spend those gems, I guess, on extra energy during the fusion. It still counts as free to play. What I'm basically saying is that it is 100% doable for free to play players, even the ones that we have today. Yes, it is time consuming. You basically need to do everything every day is the simplest way to put it.
Okay, so you do everything every day, but you're making sure you're doing the right things every day as well, right? So, I mean, everything every day to me means, like, I don't know.
Everybody knows that it's a job.
So it's going to be a big time commitment. So over a 2.5 week period or so, you're going to be committing to play, 3 to 6 hours a day and doing the right things. Okay. So that's a lot to me. And that's probably the reason that I'm skipping it. But to your point, though, it's really good when you do get these champions and they can help you out forever, right? And you don't get that many chances to get legendaries. So tell us about, okay, you've made the decision as a free-to-play, I want to go for this fusion. Let's just go with the current fusion. So, Herndig, I want him. What are you going to do? Is it too late right now as a free-to-play?
It is not too late. Again, it depends on how many gems you have saved up, basically, right? You can always get away with spending a little bit more today because you missed the last 2 days. You can end up having days where you don't have much to do. And that's why I make a plan. I always make a plan to just kind of lay out what it looks like on a week. I identify the days that are really intense. I identify the days where I can maybe play a little bit less. And I know what I need to do every day. I think that helps a ton when you have at least a plan. You know where you're headed. It's going to make it a lot easier. So I've been doing the plans now for, I don't know, like over 2 years at this point. Ever since I've started doing free-to-play fusions, I've been planning and I've been showing the plan to the viewers to help them hopefully get it as well. I try and lay out roughly how many shards you should have saved up ahead of time, how much energy it's going to cost overall in total, but also kind of looking at the free-to-play energy you're going to get. So it's not really going to cost you any gems if you do it correctly. Of course, this is for end game though. If you're a little bit more starter player, it's going to be harder. You got to understand that. But it is still, again, doable, and the plan really, really helps.
Okay, so do you mind if I show a little sneak peek of the plan, and then we'll put all your links in there? Okay, so guys, this is what we have. This is what BGE puts together. And by the way, dude, you are a machine in doing all this. Like, this is unbelievable, this stuff. Really, really good stuff. And I'll have links, by the way, guys, in the description for you. So make sure you check this out. I mean, really thorough stuff here. So I'm looking at the Herndig fusion right now. It's very spreadsheety. It's very intimidating for a guy like me, right? So where do you start? Okay, I've decided I want to go for the fusion. One of my viewers, maybe they might have been on the fence. They want to go for it. So how do you approach this spreadsheet?
Okay, so couple things to look at, right? You have the total amount of potions on the top left corner. That is potions to simply ascend the rare champions and the epic champions to fuse that guy. So that is the number one thing I look at as I'm walking into a classic fusion like this. Do I have my potions ready to go? Did I farm those ahead of time? That is going to save a tremendous amount of work. If unfortunately you weren't able to farm those potions, at the top of the spreadsheet, I have basically the days, right? The 7th, the 8th, and so on. They're color coded. That means the different keeps, all right? So to remember that on that day, you have, let's say, the spirit keep, the force keep, or the magic keep is open. So maybe to remember that on certain day, you're going to have to farm a couple potions, the ones that you're missing. Then on the left-hand side, basically under the date, we have the events in green and then the tournaments in blue, okay? And then for the main portion of it, you have basically the length of each of those and which rare champion color-coded by affinity you're going to get on those events or tournaments. That doesn't do a whole lot. It kind of just at least helps you understand what's overlapping. On certain days, there are a lot of things overlapping, and that is where you need to be careful. Or usually that is where you end up having to spend a few extra gems on extra energy. So identifying those specific days is where usually it helps a little bit. For example, the 10th.
Men of genius.
Right, we're going to have an artifact enhancement event finishing, dungeon divers, champion training event at the same time, the fire night as well. So again, just, manage your time according to this. Finally, at the bottom, you have a daily breakdown. It's roughly estimating on which days you're going to get which rare champions. And from that, it gives you an overall view as to how quickly you could get all of them. Again, this is a little bit more end game though, but you can adapt this to basically any type of player. And finally, at the bottom right, you have an overall estimation of the resources you're going to need to do all of this. So for example, energy, silver, the amount of void shards, sacred shards, mystery shards, if you're going to use a few, saved up fusions as fragments, that is huge as well. Your potions, your brews, some chickens, and gems. I usually put 0 because by now, I've proven that you can do these fusions without spending a single gem.
Wow, bro. Listen, I'm impressed and intimidated all at the same time because, again, I'm thinking about 4 to 6 hours a day, 20,000 energy, 12 million silver, 9 void shards, 500 mystery shards, 500 potions, 250 brews, a level 5 chicken. I mean, when you say end game, what is your definition of end game? Like basically a free-to-play who can clear like level 20 dungeons? Is that kind of fair?
That's where the end game kind of ended
Okay.
for me. As soon as you reach the level 15 keeps and the level 20 dungeons. Basically, I consider that to be end game. Now, if we want to debate whether or not that's mid game now or ultra end game is the level 25 dungeons, I guess beside the point. Basically, level 24 dungeons are not as efficient for fusions as level 20 dungeons. So that's something important.
That's an important point. That's an important point.
Yeah, important. So I do have another tab at the bottom that says drop rates, for example. If players want to go check that out, I do say overall you get more points from the tournament, level 20 dungeons versus 24. So again, like the spreadsheet is, the calendar is one thing I mean, but like there's a little bit more information on there to help the players manage their resources.
Okay, so what if you're a player who can't clear every level 20 dungeon? Should you still try to go for fusion? Should you stick to fragment summons? How much easier are fragment summons than fusions for a free-to-play in your mind?
Fusions are usually a little bit easier because you won't have to have the potions ahead of time, right? So you don't have to deal with the epics, you don't have to do the rank up, so you need less food overall. It's still usually as hard for the events and tournaments, but I still believe it's a little bit less work. And fragment fusions are amazing because you can save them, fuse them later during a champion chase tournament of another fusion champion, therefore requiring even less shards, for example, right? So those are little things that you can do, but for the classic fusions, I still believe they are doable for free-to-play players, even if you are not end game. The only difference is that instead of having gems at 0, probably assume you're going to have it at, I don't know, maybe
Hello, how are you doing today?
Maybe 100, 200, 300 gems. I remember doing my first fusion, which was Foley, over 2 years ago now, 1,400 gems. Saved up, free-to-play gems. Okay, so again, doable is free-to-play, but I had saved up those gems just by playing the game, and then I spent it at the right time, and it got me a legendary champion. So 1,400 gems for a Lego, that's not a bad deal.
Okay. So if you can't clear level 20 dungeons, if you're mid-game as a free-to-player, if you're just starting, I guess I assume if you're just starting out, you shouldn't even bother, and you should go for one of the epics that you feel like could help you, right? Or
you
not?
could. Yeah, you could. I remember doing Foley after about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, if I recall correctly. And but it was easier. Okay, it was easier back then. I do get it. So now, if let's say you look at the overall resources you think you're going to need from this, and you don't believe you have enough, sure, try and get one of the epics because they're usually nowadays game changers as well. But if you think you can do it and you end up spending some saved up gems, you should still try and go for that legendary. At least that's what I believe.
Okay, that's really solid then. I really appreciate you coming on. And again, we were going to talk about something else, but then we kind of talked a little bit off air, and I was just like, okay, well, wait a second here. I told one of my viewers not to go. Like, I told them why I think it's too resource intensive. But I think that to your point, and I think the point that you made really well here, is that if you already play the game anyway, right? Especially like people like you, people who are already spending doing all their dailies, right? Yeah. Why not go for it, right? Why not go for it? And so let's talk, before we let you go here, let's talk a little bit about preparation, right? So we talked about what to do when the event's finally here. You pull up your calendar, and I know that now, and you just basically take it a day at a time. Make sure you're doing the right thing and spending your resources where you ought to be, not wasting them somewhere else. What about ahead of time? Is there anything that you're doing special to prepare?
To be honest, at this point, not really.
Okay.
When you're end game and you're at the Ultra Nightmare Clan boss, for example, and you're doing level 20, level 24 dungeons, you're going to generate enough resources by default to be ready for the next fusion. So when I say getting ready, it's usually when you're a little bit more mid-game or starting out, where let's say for Foley, I saved up for 4 or 5 months. Then I did Foley. Then I couldn't do another fusion for like 2-3 months. I ended up only doing, I believe was Harvest Jack was the next one, if I recall correctly. So just keep playing the game, but just don't spend your resources outside of events or tournaments, or better yet, don't spend them outside of fusion events and tournaments, right? Because you have a guaranteed legendary if you're able to line everything up, compared to only doing a little bit of an artifact enhancement event here, might not net you the same result in the end. So I do clearly remember when I started 2 years ago, skipping a lot of events or tournaments. And I say skipping, I mean doing maybe the first 2-3 milestones and then just let go, right? Just move on, do something else, take a break on that day, whatever, but just start saving up those resources for the next fusions to come.
Okay, cool. Well, hey man, that's great advice. Any final thoughts before we let you go? I think that at least now my viewers are armed with the information that they need to make that decision on their own, right? It is possible, and I would highly recommend you guys check out BGE's channel, obviously, and that spreadsheet, right? And next time the new fusion comes around, even if you're too late on this one, make sure you guys at least consider it, right? So any final thoughts before we let you go on fusions or free-to-play tips in general for fusions?
No, I mean, at this point, if this can help your viewers or the community in general, I'm happy that I've been doing this for a while, and I do have some players reaching out saying thank you so much. With your planning, it has allowed me to get a champion. Some recent free-to-play players 80 days in was able to complete the Brogni fusion. That was the hardest one we've seen so far. So guys, it is doable, all right? When I say end game player, I don't mean you've been playing for a year. You can do this after 2-3 months if you just start understanding the concept of how they work and just being prepared. That's it.
All right, well, BGE, thank you so much for coming on the channel. I want to hear from my viewers now. Do you guys plan, or are you going for the fusion, or are you passing this time? Let us know in the comments, especially if you're free to play. I really want to hear from you guys who are 100% free to play. And if you have maybe gotten some fusions in the past, let us know who you went for, and maybe who you failed, or maybe who you gave up on. BGE, thanks again for coming on the channel, man. I appreciate it.
Got it. Thank you so much for having me, Ash.
All right, no problem, guys. Perfect time to go ahead and check out BGE's YouTube channel. Go ahead and subscribe. The information is in the show notes below, along with all the other social media information that I can kind of scrounge up here for BGE. Thank you so much for watching all the way until the end. Appreciate you guys, and as always, take care, guys.